Okay, welcome to What Happens in Vegas. We have a very special guest today, my friend, biohacking nurse, but Cheyanne Welton. We've known each other for probably like 7 years now. Would you say more?
At least. I think
And we're always,
2018.
yeah, like before Cellcore was a thing, we were learning about all of this stuff. So I've learned a lot from her, following her page and her story. We have similar story that overlap a lot. But thank you so much for being here because we're going to talk about peptides, which I am just starting to use, and I know that you have had great success with. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Dr. Steph.
So tell us your story. Like, how did you get, first of all, into the health field, but tell us, like, the whole peptide story as well, how you got really interested in that.
Perfect. So I am a registered nurse. I've been in allopathic medicine, and then I moved to a functional medicine clinic where we did ozone therapy, and we did bioidentical hormones. And then I moved to the detoxification world and worked for a company that specialized in mold and parasites. So I learned a lot on the like supplemental side. And I've been working with companies ever since then and, helping them with their sales and marketing and working with doctors. And I love that aspect. And I'm always learning because of my own health journey, which I grew up not knowing I had Lyme disease. And I think when you grow up with that much of a chronic burden, you become more sensitive to your environment. So I had developed food allergies. I developed plenty of autoimmune diseases, PCOS, Hashimoto's, and just things kept getting worse and worse. And I had learned a lot through detox. I got a lot better. My page just started to grow because people started learning about mold toxicity and other toxins that can affect our mitochondria. And then in 2020, I got really sick again from COVID, and we can kind of go from there. And that kind of led into looking deeper and looking at like deeper issues, more support tools. We'll talk peptides, and I even have stories about my family that are really fun. And I just think they're a wonderful tool. I don't think that they replace, getting your labs done and working with a great functional medicine practitioner. But I also know that functional medicine practitioners don't have this tool may not be able to move the needle forward for you in the way that you want.
Yeah, I agree. And I went through a story, same as you. It started in 2021, though associated kind of with COVID. And, it's always humbling and you always learn way more when you're in a situation that you have to get out of, right? So I feel like our insights have come from our own suffering. And sometimes things that you thought, oh, I would never use that because, some people are purists and they don't want to use anything from the pharmaceutical company. Well, there's a time and a place for everything. And these tools are amazing. And we're just trying to get people open-minded and not dogmatic about treatments that can really help them move the needle.
Totally. And like I think we want to live, I used to be a really, really crunchy person where I would not even take an ibuprofen. I was just like, absolutely not. I obsessed about everything in ingredients. But what I learned is like, I have to do this because I'm not well enough to put up with my environment and be resilient. And so
Mhm.
through time, I've been like, I want to be more resilient so I don't have to watch every single thing and everything that's going to make me sick. And we'll get into how that is probably related to your mast cells, your nervous system, and just your overall terrain.
Yeah, and I think mast cells are a huge thing to talk about right now because they are affecting so many people. And one thing that was bothering me a lot was like everyone was getting put into like you're in perimenopause or you have POTS or you have this, but really you have mast cell dysfunction and it's going to create weird symptoms in your entire body and you're not going to fully understand them until you start to look at this whole histamine mast cell component of things. So kind of tell us the way you view mast cells, your kind of story with them, and what helped you stabilize them or move the needle the most.
So what I understand about mast cells is, we do need them, but when they're destabilized or they're releasing too much histamine, it's causing damage. So when you hear all these different diagnoses like POTS, that's mast cells that are not doing well in your venous system. And then
Mhm.
it's causing issues with blood flow return, you get dizzy, you can't. So like think about that. And if you're always chasing like fluid management and, I can't do this activity and all of this, you're not really getting to it. And so when you look at mast cells and you start to stabilize them, your POTS starts to go away. Another diagnosis that I've heard is the which is the neck issues. You've talked about your
Hmm.
shoulder feeling like it's going to pop out. It's
Hmm.
when I think the mast cells are affecting the musculoskeletal system and causing
Hmm.
loose ligaments. So if
Hmm.
we learn how to manage these mast cells, I believe we can make and repair our tissues and get to a quality of life. It may not be perfect where you may not be lifting CrossFit again, but you may, I really enjoy Pilates, for example. It's really gentle on my body, but you can do lifting exercises, you can gain muscle. That paired with peptides has been such a great combination, especially with these really sick patients, to try to get them into a quality of life and building muscle.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's dive into it. How did you get into peptides specifically? So you have a story about your mom, you have your own story. Like, where do we start with your kind of
So what's
looking into
funny is
peptides?
I didn't know about peptides, but my mom was in a really desperate situation before I was. This was a few years after COVID. I had actually recovered a lot with like the carnivore diet and balancing my hormones, make sure my thyroid was optimal. And I was in a pretty decent place, but I wouldn't say I was like performing again. But I felt like I was in a good place. But my mom was suffering. She was in the hospital with diverticulitis flare. They put an NG tube in. She couldn't have any food. And she's like, Cheyanne, they're pumping me full of antibiotics. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so sick. I'm getting sicker. They gave me steroids. Sends her home for one day. She's back in the hospital the second day. She's an entrepreneur, so she's like losing a ton of money at work. And I just posted on my Instagram, like, is there any peptides that would help my mom in this situation? And several people had messaged me back, like, BPC is amazing, like, if you can get it. And at the time, it was sold in the pharmacies and really easy to get. So we got it for her. She started injecting. She's never been in the hospital again. She's never had a flare
Wow.
that threatens her life ever again. And then enter, she's been on Terzepatide, has had a 30-pound weight loss. She's thriving. She has like
Wow.
eating more foods than she's ever ate in her life. So that opened my eyes to peptides, and I still didn't understand until one of my naturopaths was like, hey, you should try, because I was like, I still have pain. I don't want to work out. She was like,
Hmm.
you should try CJC Ipamorelin. And at the time, I had no idea what I was doing, but I injected. And after like 3 days, I was like lifting my 20-pound garden bags and I wasn't sore. And I was like, I feel like a significant change. And then within 3 weeks, I was like sleeping to like really deep, waking up early. And then week 4 and 5, I had abs and I wasn't working out. I
Oh my
regained.
gosh.
Yes, I was like, this is the vein peptide because you can really like see differences. And then I was like, wow, it looks like I've had Botox and I don't get Botox. And I was like, it's rejuvenating my entire body. And that was my first experience with peptides. And I was hooked ever since. And I was like, I'm going to continue to study these and try to understand these, because we know that as time went on, the FDA really took down peptides in pharmacies. So there's been a lot of like gray market stuff. It's back in some pharmacies. You can get certain things. So we can also talk about that.
Amazing. Okay, so that was the first thing that you trialed on yourself. But when did you start to get into the Tirzepatide?
So I never thought that I qualified for a GLP
Hmm.
because I didn't want to lose weight. I've always actually been on a lower weight end of the
Hmm.
spectrum, and I've always wanted to gain muscle. So I completely cut myself out of this category for years. I tried other peptides, loved them, but I never had anything that like moved the needle like a GLP. And I was at a conference and I met Dr. Christine Schaffner, who's world renowned, like Swiss trained. She knows how to use compounded medications. She can use naturopathic. She's located in Seattle. She spoke on the most sensitive patients, and it was like watching my life up on a screen. She talked about mast cells and POTS and all of these issues. You can't handle proper treatments. You can't handle Lyme treatments. All of these things that make you sicker is because this phenomenon is happening. And she put on the board that you can use GLPs. And I was like, what? Like, is this a thing? And she said, at low doses, you can help stabilize the mast cells and lower microglial activation in the brain, which is that fight or flight feeling of the mast cells going off in the brain. And so I started a GLP-1 GIP with B12, which is Tirzepatide. And Within about 6 weeks, my chronic inflammation just totally dropped. My fingers stopped swelling. I have had like zero chronic pain. Have balanced blood sugars. Like now in the morning, I used to be obsessed with like having 30 grams of protein upon waking because it was the way I could stabilize myself. I'll have toast, I'll have sourdough toast with peanut butter and thrive on that because I'm utilizing glucose much better. And then
Mhm.
you can have more energy when you're utilizing glucose. You don't have to fear carbs as much. A lot of people have to go low carb or ketosis when they're in such a mast cell flare because what they don't know is they're stabilizing their energy via ketosis to avoid blood sugar dips, which is causing more histamine.
Yeah. And do you find like with men and women it's helping equally, or do you think more for women? Like, do you have any evidence of that or any anecdotes on that?
No, I haven't worked with any males with mast cell activation, so I don't really know. However, I would say that I probably see it more in women, and I think we see chronic illness probably more in women because of the hormone differences. And like, I do
Mhm.
think testosterone does protect against autoimmunity, and we've seen those in studies. But I wouldn't hesitate to use the same approach in men. I would definitely
Mhm.
get hormones checked in both men and women going through this.
Yeah, so I work with men and I work with a lot of athletes that have had kind of like since COVID, these kind of symptoms turn on similar to mine and yours, and they have to perform. So, you know, there's like a gray area for them for actual peptides, but I just, when they're that sick, I think it's worth using because it could be their career or no career based on if you can get these things to help them stabilize. But I'm sure there's other ways to stabilize things. But even when I think of my family, like my dad went through similar stuff because he had Lyme, that things that got reactivated with COVID. And so, that's who I've been thinking of utilizing this with in general.
Mm.
And for myself, because again, I'm feeling way better. And I always know there's more than one way for someone to get back to thriving, right? And I was telling you before the call that I had done some oligotherapy with like colloidal gold. Once I started studying gold, it does regulate mast cells and it does like bring down inflammation and it does like, it is helping you even kill like the mold and bugs that are stuck inside of you along with the platinum. And they used to use it years ago. And I went and that gave me my 90% like increase in well-being, but I still have that little bit left where all these things that you're saying are just, light bulbs going off. And I just started with someone who's very resistant to do a microdose. So I'm excited to see these changes with people and I saw you posting about it. And because we've had similar stories, that's when we reached out and I'm like, please come on the podcast. And I know that Dr. Tina Moore talked about it for years, right? The microdosing, even Ozempic
Yes, she has been actually probably more vocal on Ozempic, and I think it's because it's so widely known and it was like the first really big
available.
drug to use. But she has taught so much about metabolic health with
Uh-huh.
low dosing these GLP-1s and how it helps. She's shared her journey through menopause and how she completely was like being disheveled by it and then started Ozempic low dose. Her life got better, her hormones got better. She has actually shared little bit about hypermobility and like neurodiversity and like how the low dose can actually help protect you from it could balance the nervous system better. Your focus can get better. It lowers your risk for cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, and dementia. Like there's so many longevity benefits that are incredible that I feel like a microdose for me the rest of my life in the right moments is going to be a huge piece of like my longevity plan.
Yeah, this is just, it sounds amazing and it's our body makes GLPs anyways. So when you're using a microdose, you're not overloading the system like the problems that you see when people are dosing it too high. And I've worked with some people where they had prescriptions and they, like one lady with like diabetes insipidus, and she couldn't get anything under control. Ozempic made her worse, but that was before I worked with her and they had switched her to Manjaro, but she hadn't started it yet. And Manjaro is essentially Tirzepatide, right?
Mhm.
And so she's like, well, they told me to start at 2.5 and then go up to like 8 once, like, so you go straight from like 2.5 to 8. And I said, why don't you start even lower than that? And honestly, with like a 2 milligram dose, she regulated her diabetes that has been a major issue for years. And like all is just like modifying that dose or staying at even the lower end of the dose. Like she didn't get like the negative effects that she got with Ozempic on a higher dose. So it's like, you'd think like some light bulbs would go off there when you're taking such a high step, that maybe that's why so many people are reacting to these things.
Absolutely. I do get a lot of kickback when I talk about it because they're so scared of the side effects. And what I tell people is when a doctor is trained from a pharmaceutical rep to give you these medications, they are told to give higher doses and they're starting you higher and they're starting you at a dose that I don't even recommend. So if you can microdose this and start and be able to control your dose, you get to find the dose that fits best with your bio-individual like composition. You can track it with your Oura ring, you can track it with your labs, you can track it with how you feel, and it teaches people to be their own best advocates and learn their dose.
Mm-hmm.
And their doctor's never going to have this conversation with them ever. They're going to give
Yeah.
them a preloaded pen with dosages that are high. They're going to tell you to stick through the side effects. It's worth it. I don't believe you should have side effects. You can have bouts of maybe nausea here and there, then you can lower your dose. You may
Mm-hmm.
have slower bowels because it's delayed bowel gastric emptying. I recommend for everyone to be on like a psyllium husk just to move the bowels and keep everything regular. There are ways around things, and I feel like the benefit is way outweighs the possible side.
Amazing. So what other peptides are you really, so you had the CJC help you a ton. What other ones? You said BPC for your mom. Like what other ones have you noticed helping you, and in what ways did they help?
So right now I can tell you my stack is the Terzepatide. I use that like once a week or once every 2 weeks because I've gotten to where I don't need it weekly, but I continue on it for the inflammation and the mast cell benefits. And then I've added BPC 157 and TB 500. So those are both great for repairing tissue, healing injuries, inflammation. I do have a lot of like, I feel long-term injury, like low-grade injury from having these mast cell issues. So I feel like I'm truly like healing the tissue now and what was destroyed. I don't think the Tirzepatide can do that. The Tirzepatide, I think, is stopping the fire, and the
Mm-hmm.
BPC TV 500 is like cleaning up and rebuilding.
And these are all injectable. Have you tried any oral ones, or do you use any oral ones and see any benefit from them? Because I know it's much slower and not as fast as a change, but I mean, I did the oral BPC, but I had like an actual injury in my esophagus. So I was actually mixing it with yogurt so that it would actually like kind of stay in that area and heal it. And I mean, it definitely did move the needle when I was going through that. But have you seen it? Do you use any of the other ones that are oral?
So the only oral one I really recommend that I think makes a difference is the oral BPC 157. The rest, I believe injectable is kind of the only way to get the result you want. So if someone has like a Crohn's, colitis, you had your esophageal issues. If it's really bad, I recommend both oral and injectable. If it's mild, oral will do the trick. The problem is oral can sometimes be just as expensive as the injection. So I'll usually choose the injection anyways. A lot of people who are worried about injections, like they just fear them. They just need to know it's a tiny needle. You can barely feel it. You can have someone else inject you so you don't have to look. And it doesn't leave scarring. It doesn't leave issues. Inject in the stomach area. And you just pinch where you find fat and you inject. And it's really like once you get your benefits, you realize like injecting is worth getting these benefits.
It's almost easier. Like, I mean, I guess I have a hard time swallowing now because I damaged my esophagus, but anything that's not swallowing for me now is like swallowing capsules, because I used to be able to just take a handful, but I can't now. So, yeah, I wonder if once I start these injectables, I can heal that final bit of my esophagus problem that I'm having. But no, that's amazing. Have you done any work with the Epidolon, the one for hormones, by any chance?
I haven't tried Epitalon. I had it
I
a
say
few
them
years
all
ago.
wrong.
It's fine. I had it ready to go a few years ago and I left it out, and you have to refrigerate peptides, so I never got to use it.
Oh no.
But I do know it's great for circadian rhythm, resetting it. People said their sleep has been amazing. It's known as like one of the most anti-aging things you can do, and people usually run it twice a year. Have you had any experience with it?
No, but that's one I'm thinking of for myself. And then I've done topically the GHK copper, but I want to try that one for my skin because I got so much skin issues because my ferritin was so high with Lyme. Like it was through the roof. And I have like genes for hemochromatosis. And then I got all of these like marks, like lipofuscin on my skin that I didn't have like very rapidly. So I'm hoping like something can help that. I know I might have to do some sort of laser or something for it as well, but yeah,
Well,
I'm
with
hoping that could
the
help.
GHK copper, me and my friend Dr. Natalie microneedled our faces at home, and then we took the peptide that I mixed and put the like squirted the needle in our hands, and we finished with the GHK copper, and we healed. Like usually it takes a few days. Like we healed by like the night of the microneedle.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I'm very excited for that. And then, yeah, I don't, like I said, a lot of the experience I have is like MOTS-C because I've been working with a lot of athletes or like they were using BPC, but now, all these peptides are starting to they're trying to ban them in a lot of sports, which I don't really think is fair because they're technically, little amino acid profiles that like and these guys are getting beat up and I think they should be able to have these ability to heal just like the rest of us, but yeah, so a
Well,
lot of
like
my experience has been more with this.
GLP-1s, will they ban GLP-1s from them? Because I don't think that should be allowed.
No.
Okay.
I mean that they're not there yet, but I don't think anyone's knowing that they could use it like this to help inflammation in some ways for these athletes as well.
Yeah, and I believe it can help concussions too in a way because of if you have better blood sugar
Microglia.
control, if
Yeah.
you there's just like studies with neuroinflammation, how it can lower it. It's really cool.
Well, you talked about the microglia being activated by histamine. Well, the microglia are activated in concussion as well, right? So anything that can like dampen that is definitely going to be beneficial. So do you think like anyone microdosing, like it's safe to try it that little tiny dose? Like obviously you have to feel your own symptoms, right? But
Yes.
there's, yeah, you just
Even
have
a low
to,
blood sugar, even a low blood sugar person at a
uh-huh.
very low dose, I think can benefit because what I think happens with low blood sugar is at some point they were high and they can't regulate, so they're dropping.
Hmm.
So I think the best way if someone is very into their health and tracking is to get a blood sugar monitor. I'm going to actually do this and play with the Tirzepatide and watch my sugars, just like how I tolerate foods again, being on the peptide. And if I'm getting too low, I want to know why. Is it the food or is it because I'm too high of a Tirzepatide dose? Do I need to go down or do I need to go off?
Hmm.
Another thing is like for people who want to know if they're a good candidate is, when you go to your primary doctor, they're going to run something called your fasting glucose and they're going to run your A1C. If you can go look at functional medicine ranges, don't go off what your primary doctor tells you. Look up what's functional and optimal. And if you're in a higher zone, then you are definitely a candidate for a GLP-1.
Yeah. So for me, I'm in the low end. Like I'm in the fours for my fasting glucose and my HbA1c is in the fours as well. But my insulin's high because, that's what I'm seeing. So there's some sort of insulin resistance going on or hyper release of insulin. So from what I've studied, it can help with insulin as well. The GLP-1 microdosing.
That would be
Have you
awesome.
read?
A lot of doctors will not test your insulin. I don't know if it's a liability thing, but they'll say no. Like I've seen that. So you're going to have to test that through a functional doctor. And that's another really good marker to test because the GLP-1 is working and a GIP. Tirzepatide has more effects on insulin sensitivity than Ozempic. And that's why a lot of people are choosing Tirzepatide.
Makes sense. It's really an amazing world, this whole peptide world. And I know like, some people have been ahead of the curve. Like I know some players that were using it like 6 years ago and they were telling me about it, but it seemed like such a gray kind of scary area that it's like, you don't go there. But then when you learn that it's literally a synthesis of amino acids and you're like, it's just a signaling pathway that it's helped turning on, it becomes much less intimidating. Right. And then other people I trust, like you, utilizing them makes me also feel way more comfortable to try them out on myself and everybody else. So you've been having like suggesting these to other people, what are other stories that people have told you or things that you have seen for healing? You told us what you saw with yourself, but what else are you seeing?
So mostly I have started almost everyone on a GLP, GIP, Terzepatide when they come to me, even though they might be coming for something else because I tell them foundationally what it does and why it can help, and you may not need another peptide. And so most people will message me. One girl messaged me after 3 weeks, she got her period back and hadn't had it for a year. So
Wow.
I do see that it's affecting hormone balance. It's
Uh-huh.
definitely has a balancing effect. And I think blood sugars are key to hormone balance and cortisol, and how your cortisol. So I've seen high cortisol come down, and they weren't even on cortisol managers. They just retested and their cortisol balanced. I've seen a lot of long hauler cases myself, and I've seen a lot of Lyme and mold and histamine. So a lot of people come to me with, they say Lyme or mold, but they don't understand the histamine component, but they do trust
But I
me.
think Lyme and mold triggers the histamine component.
They absolutely do, but
Yeah.
their doctors haven't brought this up. So in their mind, they're just chasing the pathogen. They're chasing the pathogen. And
Yeah.
what I told them is, the inflammation now is like, we've got to put that out because your just body's on fire. And
Mhm.
so I've had a lot of people message me, usually in the 5 to 6 week mark, just like inflammation's dropping. Another huge benefit that people don't come in for, but they love, is the food noise goes down. So
Mhm.
what I've noticed too is I used to plan my days around my food. I would obsess and go to the grocery store multiple times a week because I was like, I have to have the perfect food to make me feel good. And I have to have this much protein all the time. And now I feel like I totally relax. I save money on groceries because I can eat more variety of food and don't have to focus so much on like blood sugar balancing. And I love that the food noise is down, so I'm not as like obsessive running my day around food. So a lot of people love that aspect, and it's one of their favorite benefits, to be honest.
That's amazing. Yeah. I was lucky with all of this is like I never really reacted to food that I could notice. Like, but except I couldn't actually eat like carnivore like you did. I tried because I'm like, I need to fix this. But my liver was so backed up that it just like ached and ached. And I had like a large amount of like flukes in there, one so big that they saw the actual cyst on imaging, like, or
Mhm.
they call it a cyst, right? But I eventually saw when I passed it and it was crazy. But I couldn't do like a lot of meats and fats. Like it was almost like I had to do more carbs than I had in the past. And anyways, it's quite a trial for what our bodies go through in these situations. So I think something like this to simplify because like you said, like I mean, I was trying to stabilize my mast cells. I was doing like 3 like histaes a day, 3 histamine digests, like Toxaprevent to bind up the histamine, and that helped me get through the day. But like, I mean, that was only I was taking multiple of those things, plus I had a whole other list of herbs and a whole other list of homeopathy, like it's too many things. Like it's information overload even for your body. And it's not like it wasn't helping me, but I just started, it clicked with me. It shouldn't be that much of a struggle for me because it was that IV or like hearing people's stories like yours from utilizing the peptides and seeing other people use peptides. So definitely, we want those things that trigger that are like a switch that help the body do what it knows how to do instead
Totally.
of like just inundating it with things that again we still do in the background, but then they're more effective, you're less reactive to them, all of those things that we're always you're herxing. Now we're calming down this flare and we're like it's just shouldn't be like that. So yeah, this
You
is a
can't
tool.
you can't out supplement your metabolism, as I tell people. So that's why I think people are on, 40 plus supplements, is because they don't know they have a metabolism issue that needs more tending to.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. So peptides for the win. I really want to try the CJC now that you've said that. There's
I
so
do
many.
like it. And I find with histamine MCAS, like the growth hormone analogs like Sermorelin, CJC, Ipamorelin, Tesamorelin, are actually handled better. Like I would say if you have a mast cell issue, I'd be careful with the BPC 157 until your mast cells are more stabilized. And then also the GHK copper, I would definitely wait internally until your mast cells are more stabilized.
That makes sense. And we talked a little bit before we got on about KPV, but you kind of said it's good, but it's more gentle, or kind of explain, because that's the one more marketed for mast cells from at least the
Yeah.
courses I've done.
So KPV to me is better for the histamine client who has inflammation. I believe that it's helping dampen that reaction, but it's not really getting to the root of it. So I do really like the peptide. I just don't feel like it's going to do the job when you have mast cell activation syndrome. It just can be a beneficial addition.
Okay. And do you find the BPC is actually releasing more histamine? That's why everyone's kind of saying to steer clear, or people are just having more of a reaction when they have mast cell issues?
It's more of an anecdotal thing because I haven't seen anything that tells me that BPC, because honestly, a lot of blogs I read from doctors' offices are telling you to use BPC with mast cells and it's a calmer and use it in chronic illness. And I'm like, no, you cannot do that. I've had so many people upset that they tried BPC first and they have a horrible reaction. And that's really stings because usually with peptides, you don't get reactions, you only get benefits.
Hmm.
Cool. But I would just say anecdotally, people aren't doing well with BPC. And I've talked to a lot of people about this. I've talked to people who coach about it. They'll usually use the KPV first. My approach is the GLP-1s first. And then some people do a thymosin alpha 1 or a thymogen or like more of a thymus peptide to try to calm the system before
Like
using.
TB 500?
No, actually, it's thymosin alpha 1, and that one's harder to get, but they were using that before the BPC. I didn't do well with the thymosins in the beginning, and that's where I wish I just would have started with the GLP way back when and started there, because I kind of went like around the whole thing because I didn't think that I was like a good candidate for a GLP.
Well, honestly, when I saw you talking about GLPs, and I know you, and I know like you've always been so tiny, so I'm like, wait a minute, because it's mostly talked about for metabolic health. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but yeah, it just got me interested. And then it makes sense when it's blood sugar and then you're regulating that and that regulates inflammation everywhere. It makes perfect sense, actually. So, yeah, it's all very interesting. Like, do you want to talk about where you're getting your peptides, or just,
Yeah. So
yeah.
right now in the US, it's pretty hard to get peptides. And so I partnered with a telehealth company. I use LEMD peptides and I can access GLP-1 semaglutide, GLP, GIP, Tirzepatide. I can get Semorelin, which is similar to the CJC Ipamorelin, which I just talked about. I can access NAD. I can access a PT-141, like a more of a libido peptide. And we are coming out with a few more this year, but they are prescription and shipped to your door. And a lot of people prefer the prescription. I do think they're stronger than the gray market peptides where you have to mix them yourself. And a lot of people don't know what they're doing. And so it can get kind of a big liability there.
Okay, unreal. And that's only in the States, right? So, yeah. All right. Good to
Yeah, I
know.
don't know how to get peptides right now. We'll have to talk after the phone, but I have Canadians and Europeans and New Zealand clients
Yeah,
asking
I
me.
do have access, so we can talk about that after, but it is something that we're going to try and do for our Canadians in a way that, with all the right pathways too. So hopefully that turns out as we plan and as we've been trying to plan for, because we have always just tried to get Canadians access to better supplements and things that they give us kind of a hard time to get here for whatever reason. They
Yeah.
claim for our safety, but
Do you guys have compounding pharmacies?
we do, but I mean, it's only like MDs that can use them, and NDs. I'm a chiropractor by trade.
Yeah, same here in the States. Like I would need a supervisor to write the prescriptions for me, but like we have compounding pharmacies. So what's nice is like whatever you want, whether it's like ivermectin or LDN or peptides, like they can make those. It's just right now the FDA has cracked down on peptides. So a lot of pharmacies will not make certain peptides because of liability.
Yeah. I mean, even like LDN, I couldn't get when I was in excruciating pain during Lyme. I had to utilize a US telehealth, then I had to like send it across the border, like go get it, and it was only give it it was sent to the pharmacy where you and I know the same pharmacist. But anyways, like it was like jumping through hoops and it helped me so much. Like, why is that a thing? But you could get like I couldn't even get doxycycline, and I know there's like lots of people have their opinions on that online, but when I felt like I was dying because my heart was going crazy, and the very first doxy I took made my heart pain go away, and I'd been trying to get it for 3 weeks, and I had clearly a Lyme infection once I got my results back. Insane.
I carry doxycycline on me in case I get a tick bite.
Yeah, didn't you? I remember once like someone you were dating got like Rocky Mountain spotted fever.
Yeah, he got a tick bite and the doctor denied. She was upset at me because I told her he got a tick bite and he's having all this, and I think he has Lyme. And she was like, she thought she was the doctor. She was so threatened that I had even mentioned, but we still got the script. And within like 2 days, he went from like dying on the floor to like better. His bloodshot eyes became clear. Like it's just crazy. Like a doxycycline is like, why do we have to have like a crazy reason to get it?
I don't know.
I don't understand. Like it makes me want to get my NP again and go back to school and just be able to write my scripts. And sometimes I'm tempted, but I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, I just go every time I'm in like Dominican or somewhere like that, and I just stock up on things that I need that apparently are not dangerous for them to just buy whenever they want. For us, it's like, it's kind of insane. I mean, I'm all for regulating things that are unsafe, but I mean, how about education instead on how to use things properly? Because you can hurt yourself with chemicals that you use for the lawn, like, but you can go and get those. It's just, I mean, there's corruption
I do
everywhere.
want to talk about, I think, a missing piece to this whole puzzle that I just figured out last week. I have a really great innovative or integrative doctor, and I have a really great integrative pharmacist. And the pharmacist sometimes helps me. Oh no, it says. So the last piece, which I think some people should look into this if you've had COVID or if you've had the vaccine and still don't feel well, is you can now test your spike protein antibody, and it's through LabCorp. And I just tested mine. My pharmacist actually told me to do this, and I'm super grateful because she's super integrative. She sees a lot of patients calling into the pharmacy and having issues and be like, my doctor won't do this and this. So she told me to run it. I was super high. I've had COVID 3 times in the past. It's been a long time, but for some reason, my immune system still isn't handling it. So what I'm going to be doing is she gave me a protocol to use ivermectin and nattokinase. And there's another spike protein supplement. I forgot what it's called, but
you should add augmented NAC for everyone who still has the spike protein hanging around. Augmented NAC.
I cannot do NAC. I don't tolerate it.
Have you tried the augmented one? I mean, I don't think. Yeah, okay. Well, if you can't, maybe you can now after everything you've done.
Yeah, I just tried NAC like a few months ago and I still didn't do all of it.
Because that's been eradicating it.
I will watch and test as I go and see if my inflammation comes down as the spike protein comes down, because my theory is like, I don't know if it's worth testing and getting this done, but I want to know if it's giving me results, then I'll share again. But like if everyone has it in their system, which we don't know, they're not getting it tested, some people could still be symptomatic and not other people. But I definitely don't want like a foreign protein in the body. And so I'm gonna test, but she said it's gonna take 3 to 6 months to come down.
Yeah, so we were testing it from early on and honestly, I'll tell you, every one of my symptomatic patients all had super high spike protein. And like some players that were like tearing muscles like no one's business, like even though they had no other symptoms, their spike protein was through the roof. So there's like zerospike.org, but that's all based on all of the research on augmented NAC for getting the spike protein out of the body. It is honestly amazing. So, like you can microdose it also. Okay. Like you can open it and microdose it, but I don't know. I don't want to make you feel unwell, but it's been helping. Like, and I had someone with like really bad post-COVID hair loss, and it stopped it within like 1 week.
Wow. What is augmented NAC? Sorry, I don't know what that is.
So literally it's NAC, but so what they did is in a petri dish, they were using NAC, and they saw that NAC would help eradicate most of the spike protein, but some would be left and then more would show up. And so what they did is they augmented like chemically the NAC, like in the lab, and then they used that and it was like 100% eradication on the petri dish. Then they started using it on humans and getting these crazy results. So it's like knack that smells way worse than regular knack already smells. So people always think the bottle's gone bad, but yeah, powerful tool. And it was created in Italy. They have, like I said, the zerospike.org, their website in there. Yeah, it's been really, really good results. Like, because I had done things like the systemic enzymes and even ivermectin for like people. I did it for myself, and that might be the reason that mine went down. But yeah, for some people that it still wasn't helping, augmented NAC.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's like brought a whole bunch of new problems to our society, all of this spike protein. And
Yeah.
I always talk about EMF at the same time as spike protein because that got released at the same time. So I'm sure they played into each other, but that's just my thing.
Yeah, and I feel like anyone who has way different like issues post-COVID, you need to look into all of the things we talked about, whether it's early menopause and you shouldn't be going through it, like hormone issues, if it's this POTS, mast cell hypermobility, if it's just I was pre-diabetic after it, COVID.
Wow.
And so there was just all these things and so it wasn't making sense to me until all these things we talked about.
Honestly, this episode is amazing. People are gonna love it. It's not that we want like a quick fix. We want something that supports the system and that works. Like, we don't want to suffer through our symptoms forever. Like, we want our lives back. Anything that could do that. And when you're microdosing something, you're not going to hurt yourself and you're going to always pay attention to your symptoms. And we're not telling you to do it. Like, work with someone that can guide you. But these are, powerful tools. And I really think peptides are the future of medicine. So thanks so much for coming on early and talking about them to everyone. Cause I know, like, there is pushback from some people and judgment and this and that. And I think it's ridiculous, but yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You're the best. So nice seeing you and catching up too. So let's do this again sometime.
Perfect.
Oh, wait, how do people get a hold of you?
So right now I just have an Instagram. It's called the Biohacking Nurse. And make sure you put the or it won't come up.
Yes.
I do that a lot. You've told me that. And yeah, that's where I mostly have my platform, and I'll do occasional Zooms or live things for peptides. And I just love sharing my journey. I love biohacking and just sharing what I've learned.
Yeah, she definitely is always on the cutting edge. So follow her.
Thanks, Deb.
Thanks. Thanks.